The lesson you are about to view is designed to assist Army soldiers in understanding the Army policy on transgender soldiers, so you can participate in implementing the policy while maintaining morale, readiness, and good order and discipline. This presentation will cover transgender policy, gender transition process, prohibitions on harassment and discrimination, terminology surrounding transgender issues, the responsibilities of a soldier transitioning to a new gender, the roles and responsibilities of all soldiers, and military medical provider responsibilities. The presentation will conclude with a number of vignettes outlining situations which leaders may face. In July 2015, the Secretary of Defense directed the Department of Defense to identify practical issues related to transgender Americans serving openly in the military, and to develop an implementation plan that addresses those issues consistent with military readiness. On June 30th, 2016, the Secretary announced a new policy allowing open service of transgender service members. He outlined 3 reasons for this change. Number 1, that the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard need to avail themselves of all available talent in order to remain the finest fighting force the world has ever known. Number 2, that there are already transgender service members in uniform today. DoD has a responsibility to them and their commanders to provide clear and more consistent guidance. And number 3, those who want to serve and can meet the department's standards should be afforded the opportunity to compete to do so. Army Directive 2016-35, the Army policy on military service of transgender soldiers, directs that the Army is open to all who can meet the standards for military service and readiness, and remains committed to treating all soldiers with dignity and respect while ensuring good order and discipline. Again, this training module provides you with basic information on DoD and Army policy allowing transgender soldiers to serve, and an overview of roles, responsibilities, and policies. The Army allows transgender soldiers to serve openly. Consistent with this policy, the following principles apply. The Army is open to all soldiers who can meet the standards for military service. All soldiers will be treated with respect and dignity, and good order and discipline will be maintained. Transgender soldiers will meet the same standards as any other soldier based on their gender identity as recorded in the Defense Enrollment Eligibility Reporting System, commonly known as DEERS. These include grooming, height, weight, physical fitness, and drug testing standards. Soldiers cannot be involuntarily separated, denied enlistment, or discharged based on gender identity. Army medical providers diagnose and provide medically necessary care and treatment for transgender soldiers eligible for military medical care in accordance with the guidance for transgender care issued by the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Health Affairs and the Army Surgeon General. That guidance requires that a soldier with a diagnosis from a military medical provider indicating that gender transition is medically necessary will be provided medical care and treatment to make that gender transition. Once this care has occurred, 2 administrative actions take place. 1, after medical care has been identified and approved and takes place, a transgender soldier is considered gender transition complete. 2, once this gender transition complete status has been reached, the soldier's gender marker in DEERS is changed to indicate that the soldier is now of that gender and must adhere to those new military standards. Soldiers who are transitioning genders or who have transitioned to a new gender are entitled to be free of harassment and discrimination. Inappropriate jokes, attitudes, or comments that marginalize transgender people damage the command climate. Existing Army rules and regulations on harassment, discrimination, and equal opportunity apply both on and off duty. Commanders will ensure that good order and discipline are adhered to. Army leaders retain the authority provided by law and DoD and Army regulations to counsel, discipline, and involuntarily separate those service members who fail to obey established standards. Soldiers need to understand the terms involving gender identity. These next 2 slides will outline those terms. Terms to be aware of include gender identity, which is a soldier's internal or personal sense of being male or female. Gender dysphoria, which is a medical diagnosis that refers to distress that some transgender individuals experience due to a mismatch between their gender identity and their sex assigned at birth. The condition can manifest itself in a person as strong and persistent cross-gender identification and a discomfort with their biological sex, or a sense of inappropriateness in the gender role of that sex. Medically necessary. These are healthcare services or supplies which prevent, diagnose, or treat an illness, injury, or condition, disease, or its symptoms, and that meet accepted standards of medicine. It can be medically necessary to treat gender dysphoria. Real-life experience. This term applies to the period in a soldier's gender transition process where they begin living socially in the gender role which is consistent with their gender identity. This normally occurs first in an off-duty status and before a DEER's gender marker change takes place. Preferred gender is the gender of the soldier after the gender transition is complete and the gender marker is changed in DEER's. Gender marker, as we have discussed previously, is the identification of the soldier's gender in the Defense Enrollment Eligibility Reporting System. A transgender soldier is a soldier who has received a medical diagnosis indicating that gender transition is medically necessary. This soldier can intend to begin the process, be undergoing the transition process, or be finished with the process and is stable in their preferred gender. The gender transition process, as we have already discussed, begins when a soldier receives the diagnosis from a military medical provider indicating that a soldier's gender transition is medically necessary and concludes when the DEER's gender marker is changed. The process can also begin when a military medical provider confirms a civilian medical diagnosis indicating that a gender identity change is required. Stable in preferred gender occurs when the medical care identified or approved by a military medical provider in a documented medical treatment plan is complete, no functional limitations or complications persist, and the individual is not experiencing clinically significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of functioning. Medical care, including but not limited to cross-sex hormone therapy, may still be required to maintain a state of stability. Each party to the gender transition process has responsibilities they must meet. The transgender soldier must initiate the process and must meet Army standards, including being prepared to deploy to an austere environment throughout the transition process. Military medical providers must provide a diagnosis to the transgender soldier, develop a treatment plan, provide medical treatment, and confirm when the treatment plan is complete. Commanders must maintain unit readiness while supporting the transgender soldier, approve the timing of the medical treatment plan to ensure it does not impinge on unit readiness, and approve the soldier's gender marker change in DEER's upon submission of a completed request. Commanders should approach a soldier undergoing gender transition in the same way they would approach a soldier undergoing any medically necessary treatment. Commanders will continue to minimize effects to the mission and ensure continued unit readiness. This slide looks in more detail at the transgender soldier responsibilities. As you can see, the soldier has the obligation to initiate the process and work with the military medical team on a treatment and must work with the commander to ensure that unit readiness is not adversely impacted. The soldier also must meet the appropriate military appearance, grooming, and physical fitness standards during and after gender transition. Finally, soldiers must use the billeting, bathroom, and shower facilities associated with the gender marker in DEER's. Soldiers must be prepared to deploy to an austere environment. It is important to note that reserve component soldiers seeking gender transition and who are diagnosed by a civilian medical provider must have that diagnosis and treatment plan confirmed by a military medical provider. We will now go through a series of specific situations which may occur as soldiers interact with transgender soldiers. In this situation, a soldier in your unit tells everyone that although he was born as a male, he identifies as a female. He explains that he is in the process of transitioning from male to female. Note the considerations and responsibilities of the command in the right-hand column. Pause this video if you need more time to read the slide. In this vignette, a soldier in your unit is transitioning from male to female. As part of the medical treatment plan, the soldier is dressing as a female off-duty. You did not know that the soldier is transitioning to female, and you see the soldier in a bar wearing a dress and makeup. Note the actions in the right-hand column that you should take. Pause this video if you need more time to read the slide. In this scenario, a soldier is transitioning from male to female. As part of the soldier's medical treatment plan, the soldier is taking female hormones and voice therapy. 4 months into the medical treatment, the soldier's body and voice begin to visibly change. Note the actions soldiers should take. Pause the video while you read the right-hand column. In this situation, a soldier has transitioned from male to female, and the soldier's gender marker in DEERS has been changed to female. This transition, though, did not include sex reassignment surgery, and the soldier still has male genitalia. The soldier begins using the female barracks, bathroom, and shower facilities. Pause the video and read the considerations and responsibilities of a soldier in this instance. This concludes the briefing on the Army's policy regarding transgender soldiers articulated in Army Directive 2016-35. We have discussed transgender policy, the gender transition process, prohibitions on harassment and discrimination, the terminology surrounding transgender issues, the responsibilities of a soldier transitioning to a new gender, and the responsibilities of all soldiers.